Let's look at this diagram. If you try to fill a glass jar with rice first, the large rocks will spill over the top. But if you reverse the order, if you put the big rocks in first, the rice easily flows into all the empty gaps. Everything fits. Those big rocks represent our faith, or vishwas, putting God at the center of our lives. The rice is everything else, our daily chores, our playtime, and our schoolwork. Making sure the rocks go in first can be incredibly difficult, especially when you are waiting for something you really want. It demands immense patience, or diarrhea, to trust that process. True faith means actively choosing to sequence our lives properly. We put God first, and we trust Him to make everything else fit. Thousands of years ago, a man named Abraham and his wife Sarah lived in the ancient city of Ur. This was a highly advanced civilization, offering safety, structure, and wealth. Then, God asked Abraham to do something difficult. He commanded Abraham to leave the security of his home and walk away into an unknown wilderness. Abraham did exactly what he was told. He packed up his family, his tents, and his livestock, and he left his entire life behind. By stepping out into that desert, Abraham was making a deliberate choice. He was placing the big rocks in his jar, prioritizing obedience to God over his own present security. Life in the desert was harsh, and they wandered as nomads for decades. All the while, they carried a deep, unfulfilled desire to have a child. One quiet night, standing outside his tent in the absolute stillness of the desert, God spoke to Abraham. God made a promise that defied logic. He told Abraham his descendants would one day outnumber the glowing stars in the night sky above. This was a staggering claim. Abraham was an old man, and Sarah was well past the age of having children. For Abraham, the challenge wasn't just in the believing, it was in the long, silent wait that was about to begin. Year after agonizing year slipped by. The seasons changed, the decades passed, and still Abraham and Sarah waited. Then, when Sarah was 90 years old, the impossible became reality. She gave birth to a healthy baby boy. They named him Isaac. In their language, Isaac translates to laughter, a permanent reminder of the joy they felt when God delivered on His promise. Their long wait shows us that God's timing operates on a different scale than ours. Remaining steadfast through those quiet years shows that patience is the engine of faith. But the story doesn't end with Isaac's birth. Years later, God gave Abraham another command, one that required him to sacrifice his long-awaited son on a mountain. For 3 grueling days, father and son traveled toward the site. In a heavy, quiet irony, Isaac carried the very wood that would be used for his own sacrifice. Looking at this historical image, we see Mount Moriah, the location where they arrived. When Isaac asked his father where the lamb for the sacrifice was, Abraham replied that God would provide. At the top of the peak, the tension reached its breaking point. Abraham built the altar, bound his son to the wood, and raised his knife in complete obedience. By refusing to hold back even his only son, Abraham showed that his trust wasn't tied to the gift, but to the giver. At the very last second, a voice shattered the silence. An angel called out from heaven, commanding Abraham to stop. Abraham looked up and saw a ram caught by its horns in a nearby thicket. God had provided a substitute. As we look at our diagram again, we see the results of putting the rocks in first. Abraham trusted the sequence, and God made sure everything else fell into place. When the wait feels too long or the test feels too hard, remember the rocks, the starry sky, and the mountain. Put God first and trust that He will provide.